Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Ellis, and this is Lesson 3, Solving Analogies When You're Only Given the First Pair. So here we've got a different kind of analogy that can be a little bit trickier to solve. What they're doing here is they're only giving you the first two words in your analogy. Whereas before, you would have seen a word over here and a line. Now you've got to figure out which of all of these pairs would be the correct answer to put over here. It's a little bit trickier, however, you can use the exact same strategy of creating a sentence that explains the relationship between your first two words staying in the right order from left to right, and then using that sentence and making sure that it works for both of the other words to solve this, just like you did with problems before. So let's go ahead and practice. We need to come up with a sentence that creates the relationship or explains the relationship between herd and cows, keeping them in the same order from left to right. So go ahead and let's give that a try. I want you to hit the pause button and either write down or think in your head a sentence that explains the relationship of herd and cows. All right, let's talk about it. Here's the sentence that I came up with to explain the relationship between herd and cows. A herd is made up of many cows. That's true, and it explains their relationship. It keeps them in the right order from left to right. A herd is made up of many cows. So now we're going to use that same sentence and put in our new words. A blank is made up of many blank. Well, let's go ahead and look at our choices. An orchestra is made up of many musicians. Well, that sounds pretty good to me. Let's keep going, though. You always want to check all of your choices. A pupils is made up of many class. Wow, this one was really tricky. They tried to get you at this one. A class is made up of many pupils, but they flip the order from left to right, so it doesn't make sense. Don't pick this one. They're trying to trick you. A pupils is not made up of many class. Let's keep going. A birthday party is made up of many children. Oh, that's kind of true too. Let's keep this one and we'll talk about it some more later. A parking lot is made up of many cars. At first glance, this one sounds pretty good to me too, until I start thinking about it and realizing that, hey, a parking lot doesn't have to have cars there in order to be a parking lot. It could be an empty parking lot, and it wouldn't have to have any cars, and it would still be a parking lot. So, in the end, this one doesn't work. A parking lot isn't made up of many cars. It's a place where you can park cars. So I'm going to cross that one off. And finally, a theater is made up of many audience. Now that doesn't sound right either to me. A theater is not made up of many audience. So I'm going to cross that one off too. All right, so we've got two left. An orchestra is made up of many musicians. I really like the sound of that. But I still want to think about this other one for a moment. A birthday party is made up of many children. How can I decide between the two of these? Which is my best choice? Well, the truth is a birthday party doesn't have to be made up of many children. What if it's a birthday party for adults? So I don't like this one quite as much. It sounds pretty good, but in the end, I think that choice A, an orchestra is made up of many musicians, is the better choice of the two. Let's try one more problem. This one is particularly tricky. Here's what it looks like. So we've got the word painter is to paint as, and then we need to decide which of these is our best choice for the same relationship. So we need to come up with that sentence that decides what's the relationship between a painter and paint. Go ahead and hit the pause button and see if you can come up with a sentence that explains the relationship between those two words very well. And while you're doing that, if you'd like, go ahead and see which of the choices you think you would pick as the correct answer. Once you've done that, hit the play button and we'll talk about it. All right, here's the first sentence that I came up with. A painter uses paint. True enough? Let's see if it works. Let's try our first one. A painter uses paint. A doctor uses a stethoscope. A cook uses eggs. A writer uses paper. A photographer uses a camera. And an architect uses a ruler. Oh boy, my sentence didn't help me at all. I couldn't eliminate any of these choices from it. I'm going to need to get a lot more specific if I'm going to be able to figure this one out. Let's try this one. A painter uses paint to create. Maybe adding that element that they're using it to create will help me to eliminate some of these. Let's go back and look. A painter uses paint to create. A doctor uses a stethoscope to create. Nope, that does not work. A doctor uses a stethoscope as an instrument to help to treat patients, but they do not create with a stethoscope. Does a cook use eggs to create? They do. Does a writer use paper to create? Yes. A photographer uses a camera to create, and an architect uses a ruler to create. Oh boy. I still didn't get specific enough. I was able to eliminate this one, but all of these still worked. I'm going to have to be even more specific. Let's think about this. A painter is using paint to create. Where does the paint end up in the final creation? That's important. I think it's going to help us out. A painter uses paint to create, and that paint is a part of the final creation. In other words, when you're looking at a painting, the paint is right there in it. You can see it. It's part of what the painter has made. Let's go back and look. So, if we've got a painter uses paint to create, and the paint is part of the final creation, a cook uses eggs to create, and the eggs are a part of the final creation. When the cook is done, what you're looking at, there are eggs in it. When a writer creates, they use paper to create, and yeah, that paper can be part of the final creation. So that one's still in. A photographer, when a photographer uses a camera to create, oh, that camera is not part of the final creation. The photo is, but the camera isn't. So we can cross off letter D. And let's look at this one. An architect uses a ruler to create, but that ruler isn't a part of the final creation either. They use the ruler as a tool, but in the end it's the building, not the ruler, that's what they've created. And you can even notice that both of these were similar. These were both tools that were used to help create, but neither of them ended up in the final creation. So now we've got to figure out which of these two do we think is the best choice. So let's go back and think about paint and what that is. Paint is a wet substance that gets mixed around and then used as part of the final product. Thinking about these two, which of those two do you think probably in the end has a more similar likeness, eggs or paper? I'm thinking about paint and how it's wet and it gets mixed around. Eggs are wet and get mixed around, but the paper is something that you're putting things onto. It's not a wet substance that's getting mixed around. So in the end, this is your best choice. I'm going to go with B, a cook and eggs. That was a really tricky analogy, and I've seen lots and lots of people miss it. So whether you got it right or not, I congratulate you for giving a try to it, and I also encourage you to keep practicing your analogies, because the more you do of these, the better you're going to get.